Hey everybody, it's me. I'm back at it. This is Dice Bag, of course. Let's see, artist, game designer, world builder, and occasional VTuber. And today I'm gonna be, doing basically all of that. So as you can see, these little guys up at the top, right above my head. These are some of the new creatures I've got designed up. Now, one of them's not really new. But yeah, they need a link in between them, and that's what I'm gonna be doing tonight. So, without further ado, I guess we're gonna get right to working on this middle dude. So, I've got a couple sketches I made while I was bored at work, so those are gonna help me a little bit get into it right at the beginning, but otherwise, we're basically going in blind. But before that, I'm gonna go in and get in on the Artistic Savants Discord and get a chat room going in case anybody wants to pop in and talk. Okay. And there we're in. I think. Aha! Voice connected. Alright. Oh man, there's so many things. Okay, there we go. Alright. And let's see. Get the link and let them know I'm on right now. Alright. I think we're all ready to jump into it. So here we go. Now this guy, I kind of need to get the pictures up on my screen here, so I can have something to reference a little better. Okay, maybe not. It doesn't seem to want to open anything. That's nice. I move my microphone a bit. Okay. Seems to be having some trouble loaded. There we go, there they are.
Mr. Diceback, it appears as though things may be broken.
My things might be broken.
My settings? Or it just looked like the stuff was frozen.
It probably was for a second. Is it moving now?
Yeah, now you're at a stunning 144p.
Nice.
but there is motion.
Okay, well, that's a good thing, I guess. What the heck was I doing? I got distracted. I was looking for pictures of the little creatures I'm working on.
I see the two squirrel fellas.
Yeah. That's on the YouTube stream?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Just getting them open in Photoshop so I have something to look at real quick.
Right.
Anyways.
You also have a little bit of an echo.
An echo? What the hell? How the hell do I have an echo?
You know, I'm just dumb. I had the YouTube feed playing.
Oh. Okay. I was wondering, like, I don't have anything else going. I've got my headphones on. Literally all the sound is just outside.
Mm-hmm. And otherwise it looks good. Apart from the 144p thing. It's like being in 2006 again.
Yeah, well, when I get my computer upgraded a little bit, maybe we can go a little bit more.
Have you got an estimate on when that'll happen?
Not entirely. I ordered a newer graphics card.
Okay.
It might be sitting outside my doorstep right now, but I haven't gone and looked. I probably should, but hell.
It's a dark night in Detroit. It's not worth the danger.
Well, good thing I don't live in Detroit.
I say the same. Okay. Oh goodness. Tell me about the squirrel fellas.
The
What's their deal?
squirrel fellas. These guys are going to be the main kind of example of the martial creature type.
Okay.
Which is basically like the creature's version of fighting.
Gotcha. Are they
So
martial in anything else, or are they just martial?
they're just martial.
I see. Can you explain to me creatures as a whole? Conceptualization.
Well, basically, I just kind of thought, hey, what if there was a Pokemon tabletop RPG? And there wasn't. So I was like, hey, maybe I can do that.
I see.
So I put my own little spin on it as I was making it, and it's something completely different now.
Nice.
Okay, that hand is terrible.
It does know what it wants to be, which is a step in a direction.
Creatures?
Oh no, the hand specifically.
Oh, okay.
It seems to me like you got creatures figured out.
More or less. I mean, I keep changing my mind about everything, but in general, I kind of know what I want.
I mean, find me an artist who doesn't change his mind on a couple of things. You know,
A couple things.
just a couple things. You were going to do some programming stuff with it too, right? Or have you put the axe on that?
Yeah, that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Gotcha.
It's just too much for me to do while doing everything else.
Right, I hear you. That's not a value judgment at all. It's like a lot of work, actually.
Yeah, it definitely is. But if I have time, I would like to try and make some simpler games on it, on Unity. Then see where that goes. But ultimate, go ahead. Now you go.
I was going to say there was a very good tutorial I had watched not too long ago. It was this dude who made a rolling ball game, effectively, where you just, marble game.
Yeah.
You roll it down a hill. Maybe not the most thrilling game, but it got some concept across.
Yeah. Well, the main problem I found is that most of the tutorials for Unity are for games that are like kind of physics-based stuff.
Right.
So, it's platformers and stuff like that, where you just kind of... You're programming it to interact based on what collides with what and stuff like that. Pretty simple stuff. But then for doing a strategy game like I was, basically everything is just some new rules interaction. So it seems like there's a ton of different coding you have to work out, and I'm not equipped for that.
Same. It's all a bit much. So is this like the middle fella?
This is the middle fella.
Gotcha.
Yeah. He's gonna be the design that everybody hates.
Is this a thing? Is this some meme?
That people don't like middle evolutions on Pokemon?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty common. And after designing creatures, a bunch of them, I understand why that is. Because
Can you elaborate?
it's just the way you think. The middle one is always like the least interesting because it's the least extreme, I feel. Because you start with the main one, the first one, the little one, and the main thing is it's cute, right?
True.
Almost every time it's just cute, and you can build off of that. And then let's see, when you go into the last one, it's basically buffer and more dangerous looking, and it knows what it needs to be.
Right, like we're done playing games. This is my final form, Goku.
Yeah, exactly. But then the middle one is just kind of halfway in between that. So
Okay.
it doesn't really know what it wants to be. It's just like an awkward teenager.
Sounds so sad. It's like he's having an identity crisis.
Basically. He's in his awkward stage. He's not cute anymore, and he's not powerful.
I don't know. Like when I think about it, I think about Charmeleon. Charmeleon was dope.
He was kind of generic, though. That's kind of the thing.
True. I guess I'm gonna be honest. I don't know many other middle evolutions off the top of my head. The only other Pokemon that I can really think about is like the Zubat, Golbat, Crobat, where Golbat is absolute trash, but Crobat is sick AF.
I guess.
You're not a bat fan?
I'm not really into those bats, no.
Wow.
This guy's neck is a little too long.
How long have you been working on it?
Creatures?
Yeah.
I probably made the first creatures like a couple years ago.
Were you just like extremely disappointed by the new Pokemons that were coming out?
Yes, quite literally, that was like the main motivation. In fact, that's the motivation for a lot of the things I do.
Game Freak has ruined it. Fine, I'll do it myself.
Yeah, well, I did that with Magic too. I made my own card game. and that didn't go anywhere, but I made it. It's still there, and I might pick it back up after Creatures.
It seems super difficult and super time consuming to do.
The main time-consuming thing about making the card game is just all the art. Making the mechanics is easy.
I find that surprising a little bit.
Now, art takes like hours if you want to make something decent, but I can just crap out a random card like on the fly.
Confirm, toss a coin to your illustrator. Art be hard.
Yeah, that's kind of why I doubled down on Creatures. It's a much simpler art style. For Domain, the card game, I was using a really paintery style, so it was kind of more time consuming and more uncomfortable because I'm not really used to working in semi-realism.
What was the crux of Domain?
In terms of gameplay, you mean?
Yeah.
It was basically Magic the Gathering, but fixed.
I guess that's my question. I know it's like a weird and like in-depth question, like how do you fix Magic? But like,
well,
I'm not sure.
I don't mind talking about it at all. I love talking about games, but yeah, the main thing was the mana system. With Magic, what you get is that you have the whole lands stuff. You gotta have your lands to cast your spells because they produce mana, right?
Right.
But the problem is sometimes you don't draw enough or any lands. So that's like a huge problem with Magic, is that it really screws you when you don't deserve it. Just based on your draws. Yeah. So what I did was, instead of having actual land cards, I used a similar mana system, but each card has the equivalent of a land card like stapled to the bottom of it. So what you do, instead of playing lands, you just play your normal cards upside down, and those would function in the same way that lands would.
But not in the way that they normally would. Like they could be land, or like they could be mana, or they could be the card that they actually are.
Not after you play them. Once you actually play them out on the field, it's whatever you put it in. But yeah, when they're in your hand or whatever, then yeah, you get to pick and choose whichever one you want. And I thought that made a nice little dynamic between having to decide, like, which cards do you want to give up for resources and which do you want to actually play.
Right.
And you kind of had to pick and choose and decide which one was more important at which time.
When you were developing this out, did you run into like weird balance issues? Because I feel like something like that could be like quickly become a balance nightmare.
It's not that big of a deal, really. Let's see. What was the main thing? I guess the main balance change was just that it was easier to get high-cost cards out, just because you never run out of, like, mana or lands.
Right.
So I kind of had to... Whoa, this guy skipped leg day. He's tiny down there. That's zooming in too far. Wow. But yeah, I had to kind of rethink how more powerful cards or more high-cost cards would be balanced. But it wasn't really that much different.
How would you end up settling on in terms of like your rethinking of how to balance stuff?
Let's see. What did I do exactly?
Because these kinds of questions are some of my favorites in terms of just like, how does the designer think about the thing that they're creating?
Yeah, well, I think. See, it's kind of weird because the thing Magic does is they'll have a huge discrepancy between like the power levels of their cards. So I might say I made them weaker, but weaker than what? Weaker than the mythic rares that everyone chases after, or weaker than the commons that are the same type. So I guess generally the power wasn't much different. It's just that I made it consistently good, but not like broken.
I see.
I don't know how to describe it.
No, I think I understand. Like, you made it so that both players would be able to play their good cards without making it so that one of them just got dumpstered in the event of, like, bad luck.
Kinda. And another thing I tried to do with the system, it actually gave me another way to balance cards other than just like their straight up stats and power levels. Is that like with Magic, you have different kinds of lands that will produce different types of mana or multiple colors of mana or something. So with Domain, what I did was I would give them resource modes that mimic that, but I'd use it as a balancing mechanic for like the power level of the main stats of the card. So if something had a good resource mode, it would be generally a weaker card.
I see.
And if something was especially good, I'd make it actually a colorless resource. So it wasn't very good as a resource. And that actually works out pretty well because you want to play your more powerful cards instead of sending them as a resource. And then your weaker ones, you don't really care so much, so it's alright to throw them away.
Right. But in a bind, you still have the options.
Yeah, exactly.
I see.
And that also means that if you have weaker cards, there's actually a reason to include them in your deck. Jeez, this guy is really just looking like a monkey. Maybe I should make him more flat-footed.
Square. I feel like once you add the bushy tail, it will become obvious.
Maybe.
This family tree is twisted. You don't ask where the middle child is from.
Alright. We're gonna move this leg a little bit. You know what? That's not the problem leg.
Step. He is forward advancing.
I'm gonna change this angle a little more. Wait a second. Maybe I just made his arms too long. That might have something to do with it. Then again, I don't know. It looks like his lower body is just too small.
He's definitely out of human proportion. But I don't know if that matters considering he is not a human. You know?
Yeah. This is the dilemma you run into when you're drawing cartoon animals.
And the entire staff of Cartoon Network signed an agreement.
Maybe we should give him a little more of a martial artsy pose with his legs.
Like, I don't know. You got like your young kid. He's happy to be there. Middle kid, like martial and disciplined. Adult, he's just ready to kick some butt.
Yeah, yeah. The thing is, I have this general pose sketched out in a notebook, and it looks pretty good. I'm having trouble replicating what I did there. Alright.
I mean, I don't know if it looks that bad. I think it's just like a little bit of findangling with the legs. I don't think it's the length or the size of the legs, just like the angles of
Maybe. But, I feel like I should make his hands more cartoony.
never hurts. So what was it about Pokemon that went wrong? That inspired you specifically? Where did it all fall apart?
Dynamax.
What? All right, so I've been out of the Pokemon loop for a hot second. What is Dynamax?
Okay. The last Pokemon games, basically what happened is that they threw out everything that people liked about, like, the last two games,
Okay.
and then replaced them with something completely retarded and memey. That's the way I would describe it. So, like,
Need some elaboration.
with Generation 6, they introduced Mega Evolution,
Yes.
and that was pretty cool. And then with Generation 7, they introduced something called Z-Moves, which was kind of like a takeoff of Mega Evolution in terms of mechanics. It operated on a similar resource kind of thing.
Are these moves that you can only use when Mega evolves?
No, they're just moves that you can only use like once per battle.
I see. Do they still occupy like one slot on your Pokemon's thing?
Yes, they occupied the hold slot. So that's kind of where they were coming from in terms of like being similar to Mega Evolution. And, you know, I wasn't too down for those, but, you know, it's whatever. Usually, Pokemon just throws everything out the window as soon as the next generation comes around anyways. But they kept Mega Evolution around for that. At least in the, well, they kept around the ones that they had already made. So I figured that was there to stay. Now, the problem is with Generation 8, they went and just dumped all that. No Mega Evolutions.
Which gens are which? 8 is Sun and Shield?
Sword and Shield.
Sword and Shield?
7 is Sun and Moon.
Okay.
And then 6 was X and Y.
I see. So I stopped playing at just before X and Y.
Ah,
Wait, no. X and Y is the dude who's like, I want to get this legendary deer thing and destroy the world?
I don't remember what the villain's motivation was, but yeah, it was the one with the deer.
Yeah, I remember that one. The villain had like a genuinely like, I guess, he felt more apocalyptic than the other villains. It was weird. But the Pokemon plot is not its strong suit.
I don't pay attention to Pokemon plots.
Oh,
I
not
literally
missing much.
I literally just like run through the main game and then play all the post-game content and do like online battles and stuff, and that's mainly my Pokemon experience.
So you're there from like the perspective of a person who enjoys RNG mitigated strategy.
Kinda. I like
Pokemon is less than like a card game, but still.
Yeah, Pokemon is basically just a digital card game. Collectible card game. But yeah, I like the little strategies and I like collecting the monsters and stuff like that. That's the main draw for Pokemon, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
So wait, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, Gen 8.
Yeah, what did they do again?
So like I said, they took out Mega Evolution, which was like a cardinal sin as far as I'm concerned. And then they also took out Z-Moves, which were not a big loss. But then they added something in called Dynamax, which is basically like once in a battle you can turn your Pokemon into a kaiju for 3 turns.
Okay. I guess.
And
How is this different than Z evolutions? I guess is my question.
you mean Mega Evolutions?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it only lasts 3 turns.
Okay. And Mega evolutions lasted
The entire battle.
I take it.
And I don't think it used up a held item like they did. But basically, yeah, it's just a rip-off of Mega Evolution. And made to be like, oh, look, they're big. Haha, isn't that cool? And it really rubbed me the wrong way just because I really liked Mega Evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So taking that out was like a slap in the face.
And this new thing didn't like provide much beyond the facsimile of what Mega Evolution was.
Basically, yeah. And then there was also some other things dealing with it. So, like, first of all, they didn't have all of the Pokemon available to be, like, transferred over.
Okay.
So, well, that's a thing with, like, every game. Every game has, like, backwards compatibility with the other Pokemon games,
Yeah.
where you can transfer them from one to the other. This one just left out a huge swath of Pokemon from previous generations that were not able to be transferred or found in the game. I think they said, like, I don't know, they gave like multiple contradictory reasons, which is kind of the main reason people got upset about it. Because they say, like, oh, we want to balance the metagame, but then they put in, like, some of the most imbalanced Pokemon out there, and then they're like, oh, well, we didn't have time to do all the things, and it's like, well, you're using the same models you used on some of the other games. People were debunking that, and it's like, okay, what's really going on here?
Was it ever revealed what was really going on?
I don't really know. I kind of stopped paying attention after I just got, I don't know, disinterested in the whole thing.
Yeah. Because my understanding has always been that Game Freak, despite being like Nintendo's cash cow effectively, they're
Yeah.
still, like a real small team.
They are,
Very
yeah.
controlling, I guess. So like if they were like, oh, we just didn't have like the manpower to release a game on schedule with all these Pokemon, I'd be like, okay, kind of scummy, but I would buy it. But the balance thing, this seems like if they just didn't lie, it would have been a lot more palatable.
If there wasn't the whole fiasco about the not bringing in Pokemon from previous versions, I might have just said, okay, whatever, and got it anyways. But there's just so many things about that game that I didn't care for, and that was kind of like the icing on the cake. There's something else too, like, what was it? I was just thinking about it. Oh, come on. Why is my brain not remembering?
Did it pull an IGN? Was there too much water?
I don't know.
was my favorite Pokemon game. The Emerald, Ruby, Sapphire versions.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely loved those.
Oh yeah, it was the whole aesthetic of the thing.
Okay.
Like, the gyms they had, and the whole Pokemon League thing they had going on for this thing. It was all, like, based on, like, sports aesthetic. Like freaking sports ball. Everything was in, like, a big stadium with, like, a field, and all the gym leaders were wearing, like, athletic clothes, but they weren't. What?
Is this the one where Nessa is from?
Yes.
I see.
And Nessa is probably the best of the look. Everybody else has some kind of, like, weird outfit where, like, it's trying to be something else, but then they put a bunch of logos and stuff on it, so it looks like some kind of athletic thing. And it's just disgusting to look at. I hate it.
It sounds incredibly cursed. So I knew that Nessa was a Pokemon. Not a Pokemon trainer. I had no idea which game she was from.
Yeah, she's from the newest one.
It's interesting. Has like reception for it been good though? Has it been largely negative, do you feel?
I haven't really paid that much attention. I think overall it probably did fine for a Pokemon game, but there is a lot of sour grapes in the fan community.
Gotcha. And like they're always going to do, well, it will take a lot for them to do poorly.
Yeah, it's hard to not sell something with the Pokemon brand. Oh yeah, there's also some other shady crap they had. This is like the first time they've actually done DLC for Pokemon 2. And apparently they had a pretty lackluster post-game. So it's kind of like, oh, we didn't have time to make enough post-game content like we usually do, so here's some DLC that you can buy.
How bad was post-game? Like, how bad are we talking? Because I remember in the older games, right, you would have like not Emerald, you'd have Sapphire and then Ruby, and then the post-game would be like, you fight the Elite Four again, or you fight other people in the Elite Center. But then they would release Emerald, and it's like, okay, now you have the post game that's like you have the Battle City or whatever.
Yeah.
Is it like worse than that, or?
I haven't played the thing, so I can't really comment too much. But from what I heard, it's basically just like there's one additional thing you can do.
Yeah, that sounds
like a little post game storyline.
So what I'm hearing is that instead of releasing a new game like an Emerald or something, they just said we'll give it as DLC, which is kind of scummy. If you can avoid it, I guess you could have just started with it.
I think this guy might be coming together.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together. Is he also going to have the blinding bangs?
Yes. All three of the All three of them have their heads that are based on acorns.
Oh, that's cute.
So this guy's gonna have like a shaggy looking hairstyle. That's gonna cover his eyes with the shagginess.
Gonna be like, zoink, scoop.
Yeah.
I got a shaggy haircut.
Okay. Found out the reason my stupid notebook sketch looked better is because I was using just like a normal human type of foot.
Down you and your normal human feet. I don't even know. Like, if I use my mind's eye and I try to imagine, you know, like a squirrel's paw? Question mark? I have no idea what that looks like just off of memory.
It actually probably doesn't look like what I'm doing here. I think they're more long and like grabby.
I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt and assume that you are entirely on point.
Well, heck, I don't even give any of these guys ears.
Well,
I thought about it.
No
Us-
animal with ears has ever used them to benefit themselves.
Yeah. I'll just have to say they're under his hair.
Checks out.
Like his face. Oh, that looks weird.
Creature's conspiracists coming in, questioning whether or not the creature actually has a face at all. Or is it just big dice propaganda.
Big dice. Alright, I think that's about as good as his body is gonna get. Time to move on to something else. Let's see, he's gonna need a little chest thing to like the others.
Looking clean, looking svelte. You work out, bro? Looking lean.
He is pretty lean. Yeah, he could probably use a little bit of a shoulder reduction.
He exclusively does, what is it? It's like the horizontal lat raise. It's all shoulder. No other exercise we do.
That's a little more in proportion with the rest of him, I think. Alright, I think that's pretty good here. I can start doing his face.
Yeah, it's a smidge more. Less aggressive on the shoulders for sure.
Alright.
Chipmunk teeth. It's a must.
Oh, squirrel teeth.
This is gonna sound like a dumb question. Is there a difference between a chipmunk and a squirrel?
I mean, there has to be. They're probably part of the same family.
I don't think I've ever seen a chipmunk. If there's a difference.
I think they just have basically like a different body type, more chubby.
Cool. It makes sense why I haven't seen them. They're out there getting ate. Like, imagine being like a super predator and nature is just like, yo, you know squirrels? We just made them fatter. Have at it.
Oh, if they can climb trees, then that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, but then it's just easy pickings for hawks, right? I'm sure a hawk would eat a chipmunk, no hesitation.
I don't think hawks would really have an easy time getting around in trees. Like, they can perch on them, sure, but... You ever seen a bird walk?
You know what? I don't know that I've ever actually seen a bird. Now that you mention it.
I guess ostriches are pretty good at walking, but
They're like not though. They're just good at running, right? That's their thing. They kind of suck at walking, but they just run fast. Or am I like totally mistaken?
I feel like running is just the good version of walking. So
Congratulations, you've upgraded walk.
if you say they're bad walkers but good runners, I'm just like, so they're good walkers.
I see. The only thing I know about ostriches and their respective skill set is that they are excellent at catching wily coyotes. And
What?
you know,
Is this more of your understanding of early quote-unquote animation?
indeed.
That's a roadrunner you're talking about.
Is that a roadrunner?
It's the
What's the
roadrunner.
difference between a roadrunner and an ostrich?
An ostrich is like big. I'm pretty sure roadrunners are little guys.
The coyote was pretty large there.
Yeah, well, coyotes aren't that big to begin with. I mean,
Are they not? I've never seen a coyote. I feel so untraveled.
I mean they're like
I've never seen
dog-sized. Ostriches are freaking huge.
That is true. I cannot deny. I've never seen an ostrich walk. I've only seen them run. The fact that a roadrunner isn't an ostrich is kind of still blowing my mind a little bit. I don't know how to internalize that.
I'm sure they're pretty closely related given their body types. You know, kind of like a squirrel and a chipmunk.
I see. Also in the same family as ostriches. Understood. What's your take on the cassowary?
The what?
The murder ostrich.
Okay, now you're talking about things I don't know.
No, it's just like a bigger ostrich, was my understanding. They have them in like South Africa, or maybe just like normal Africa.
South Africa is part of normal Africa.
Debatable. In my African power rankings, it goes Mali, Sudan, Chad, naturally, and then South Africa.
Have you seen the picture of Chad?
I have seen the picture of Chad with the superimposed Chad meme on it.
Yes.
It's so good.
It's like the same shape.
I'm starting to believe more and more that memes are not things that we make into dreams, but things that come from reality.
Meme magic is real. Alright, this guy's starting to look ready for the coloring.
Yeah, man, the cut is kind of lit. This looks like a fellow that I would have enjoyed my adolescence with.
I don't like that new. I need to go back to the old way. Alright. Oh, now it needs a tail. Almost forgot the tail.
All finished, posted up. Something about this doesn't look quite right.
On the big guy, I didn't draw his tail at first.
Critical error.
Yeah.
Did you post it without the tail as well?
No.
So you did catch yourself, though.
Yeah, I caught myself ultimately. But at first, I was like, huh, something seems off.
This man seems too off.
He doesn't look very much like a squirrel for some reason.
He doesn't look like a squirrel. It's not the fact that he's positively jacked. It must be something else.
Alright, I think that's looking okay for his tail. You gotta give him the stripe on the underside like the other ones.
True, true. This is a characteristic of squares that I'm intimately familiar with.
Of squares?
Of squirrels? Excuse me?
You said squares.
This is a characteristic of squares that I'm intimately familiar with?
Yeah.
They all have stripes on the bottom. However you would define your bottom of a square.
Alright. I think he's ready to get some colors.
Hell yeah.
This is the hard part.
You don't like the coloring phase?
I have a hard time picking out colors. But I'm mostly gonna borrow some colors from his other guys, so...
Yeah. Like, on the bright side, there's not, like, a lot of decisions that have to be made.
Yeah. Let's see. Between the two of them, I basically just darkened the colors of the first guy. But I didn't really darken them a huge amount, so it's kind of like I have to find some kind of in-between or something. I don't know.
You also have to figure out which belt you're gonna use.
It's gonna be brown.
I see. I am not a martial artist. I do not know the various varieties of belt.
Well, it's different for every one of them.
Gotcha.
I did a little taekwondo back in high school, so I know a little bit.
But this is not a self-portrait.
No, no.
High school taekwondo. Man. Was it a thing offered by your high school, or was it something that you had to seek out yourself?
Now we have a school in my town for it.
I see.
I don't know if it's still around, actually. That was quite a while ago.
Feels old, man.
Let's see. Taekwondo belts were started with white. Let's see. Wow, I'm practically blanking on the early belts.
Like for everyone though, it like starts at white pretty much.
Yeah. I want to say it was like white, then orange, then yellow. Then I think it was blue next. Then what was after blue?
Just to double check, the Taekwondo is the Korean one.
Yeah. It's basically Korean karate.
I feel like you upset every Taekwondo practitioner with that sentence.
I mean, Korean is probably like the probably the number one worst language in the world. No wait, number 2. We'll give it number 2.
What's number 1?
French.
Oh, is that because of the French though? Or is it because
It's
of French, the language?
It's purely the language.
I see.
I just hate the way it sounds.
Yeah, the people love it. It gets them going though, you know?
It sounds disgusting to me.
Wow.
There's too many guttural mouth noises. Like Clem.
Are you sure that's not Arabic?
What, Clem?
Clam.
So those noises just grate me.
I mean, with that explanation, you've convinced me.
But yeah, Korean just sounds like gibberish. I can't make any sense of it. And like, we actually use some commands in the Taekwondo classes in Korean. And like, I could not figure out how it was supposed to be pronounced, even though I heard it time and time again. And that's partly probably because the people speaking it were not Korean and didn't know Korean, and they were just Americans who had heard it and were trying to repeat it, maybe. But I've heard Korean in other contexts, and I still find it to sound like gibberish.
Honestly, understandable. The only things I've heard is Anyang Haseo and kimchi.
Kimchi,
That's
yeah.
all I need to hear, you know? I
Okay.
don't need any other vocabulary.
There we go. Now the question is, what shade of brown do we use here? Let's make it a more...
Exact middle.
Let's make it a more like reddish type of brown, I guess. We'll see how that looks. Could be darker. Darker. Nah. Yeah, let's just go really dark. There we go. Yeah.
Being a little bit behind in the YouTube stream is just nothing but suspense.
You can hear what I'm talking about, but not see it until later.
Exactly. Like I hear you click a button, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see what that does.
I gotta go in and fill in some gaps, the fun part. I wish drawing programs had better fill tools.
I mean, I don't want to just be a shill for a program that I love, but Clip Studio Paint, if you use vector lines, it's chef's kiss.
Vector lines, huh?
Yeah. You would not, I don't know if you would be able to achieve the softness that your line work has with vectors, but they do make paint fills extremely easy. But not to be a, you know.
Yeah, well. Yeah, I don't know if that would work out with my art style or not. I usually steer away from vectors.
I used to be the same way.
How does it handle line weights?
In Clip Studio, or just in CSP, it handles them the same as it would a raster brush. Depending on how dramatic your shifting in pen pressure is, it may do some post-correction afterwards, which may not give you the exact line that you've drawn. But generally, it'll be pretty close, if not the thing that you did draw.
Alright. I've thought about getting a replacement for Photoshop here. Maybe I'll take a look at it. I think I was trying Cryture a while back, but that kind of got on my nerves trying to figure out all the hotkeys and stuff.
Yeah, Cryture is weird. The way it's arranged makes me so uncomfortable.
Yeah, there's something about it that was just like, I don't know if I can deal with this.
Like, for being open source and whatnot, for being free for the people, it's excellent. However, I did not have the best UI or UX.
If Clip Studio Paint actually has like a similar control scheme to Photoshop, then I might just adopt that. Because the main thing I like about Photoshop is just that I'm used to it.
Right.
I know where everything is, I don't have to relearn a whole new program.
I've never used Photoshop. I wanted to use Photoshop. They went pay to play, and I was like, alright, I'm good.
Yeah.
Instead of just buying your software, I will just not purchase your software now.
Yeah, instead of renting your software.
Right. Oh my goodness, I hated that so much because I liked it. It looked nice. It's what all the big people use.
Yeah, the industry standard. Yeah.
I put Studio and was like, this is great. Never looked back. Although I did use Paint Tool Sci, and I did use a little bit of Krita. Used a bit of GIMP in the very beginning.
GIMP, almost forgot that one existed.
I think that's for the best. I love GIMP. I do not love GIMP as an illustrated program. What's the other one? People like Fire Alpaca a lot.
I've heard that name thrown around, but I didn't know it was a drawing program.
Yeah, it's.
It sounds like it. It sounds like a Firefox knockoff.
It really does. The UI is also straight out of 2005. However, it's a pretty good, like, free version of Paint Tool Sci, is what it feels like. And know they have some animation tools in there as well, but I don't think those are very robust.
Does a Clip Studio have any animation?
So based on the one that you get, they have the Clip Studio Paint EX and the Clip Studio Paint Pro. One of them lets you do 24 frames of animation, which comes out to, usually around 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one has unlimited animation tools. And from what I played with the animation, it's strong. If I was a better animator, I could make amazing things.
Mm.
Contingent on the first part of that sentence, of course.
Yeah.
Is that something that you were looking at? Animation?
Maybe. Photoshop allows a little bit of it, but it's not like super detailed or doesn't have much tools to it. It's basically yeah, you have a timeline and you can kind of, it's basically just draw frame by frame.
Gotcha. The Clip Studio is also a frame by frame animation tool. They let you do like onion skinning, and a couple of other things. They let you do animation cells in their own individual folders instead of just like one layer is one frame.
Yeah, that's actually kind of one of the things that Photoshop doesn't do so well. It's like each frame you have to pick and choose which layers are on it, right, or visible. And I don't know if there's a way to like simplify that.
I think Clip Studio has a point up in that regard, though. But I mean, like, they weren't designed as neither Photoshop nor like Photoshop wasn't even designed as like an illustration.
Oh yeah.
So
it's kind of crazy how Photoshop has turned out.
Yeah.
Because even back in the early days, you had people like, you had crazy artists that were doing like mouse drawings or mouse paintings that were like super detailed.
Actual like insane folk.
Yeah. Actual artistic savants.
I don't know about that. They were something, all right. Too much time.
I mean, these guys were like professional artists.
Were they?
I know at least one guy that I've seen doing like super detailed like fantasy art like from the 90s on PC.
That man worked at Sierra making Adventure Quest. Early CG was weird.
Oh yeah. I need to go back and look at Reboot sometime. Reboot? Oh, you don't know Reboot?
I don't know Reboot, no.
You need to find out about Reboot.
I should be worried about.
It's a very early computer 3D animation cartoon.
Is it jank? It sounds like it's probably jank.
I don't remember it well enough to know off the top of my head, but from what I've heard from other people talking about it, it probably doesn't hold up in the visual department. But as a kid, all I cared about was that there were little people living in a computer, and they had to fight the user by playing video games.
Whoa. Yeah, this sounds like it would be great if you were a youth.
It was so sick. But yeah, it probably looks like garbage to my adult eyes. Didn't matter though. I wanted to be Bob.
I mean, that's the joy of youth, ain't it?
Yeah.
Everything's like new, everything looks cool.
Oh yeah, everything's new. And then you get older and you're like, I've seen that before.
You can't fool me. I've seen that filter on Instagram 37 times.
You can't fool me, this is just fantasy Pokemon.
This man's a phony. Etc. I do take issue with the conceptualization of fantasy Pokemon a little bit.
Why is that?
Is it not already fantasy?
I mean, if you kind of butcher the idea of fantasy,
I
I would say Pokemon is more akin to sci-fi.
Whoa.
I mean, Pokeballs are not magic. They're technology.
True, but I have not heard this take before, so it's like...
Pokemon is a very technologically advanced society if you really look at what they have.
I mean, like, there's Silph.co, right? And that's like...
Yep. And they have little balls that can dematerialize organic matter and then transfer it into data and send it, like, through the internet.
And not only that, it's like normal.
Yeah,
It's not even like a military thing. It's just like a consumer grade product.
yes. It costs like $2.
Hey, you want this magical tool of enslavement? It'll be like $2.50. That's wild. I had not given it that respect.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like how you realize that Star Wars is fantasy, even though it has spaceships.
Can you explain?
Star Wars it starts out as a story about like a young guy who lives on a farm, and one day he meets an old wizard, and his family is killed by an evil empire, so he takes up his father's magic sword and then goes on an adventure with a pirate and a hairy monster to rescue a princess.
I don't.
It's
Like Star Wars.
it's literally just a fantasy story with spaceships and lasers.
But I feel like by this logic, all stories are fantasy stories now.
Not really.
Apart from just like recreations of modernity and history.
I mean, if you go into like straight sci-fi, there's nothing really fantasy about it. Star Trek, no fantasy.
What do you mean? That's a group of vagabond adventurers taking to unknown lands with their ragtag team of miscreants.
No, Star Trek is about the interplay between alien races or advanced technology and how it affects humanity.
Ah, yes, the high elves and the orcs.
Although Vulcans basically are just space elves. Now think about it. They got pointy ears.
True.
They think they're better than humans.
True. Points made. There's nothing else to list.
That's all you need, really. That is the essence of an elf.
I don't have a very strong like understanding of media tropes in regards to these things. Because like my default elf is like the Skyrim elf, where they just want to be like not assailed, but everyone's like, ah, it's a filthy elf. Go back to the woods, ye elf.
Mine is more like the Lord of the Rings elf.
Where they're just like, ah, they're high and lofty. And...
Yeah. I feel like that's a more common usage of elves.
I think I would have to agree, from what I've seen. Despite my default being, oi, elf, get out of Winterhold. You don't belong here.
Well, hell, in Elder Scrolls, it's not just Skyrim. There's other places with elves.
Right, but I mean, like,
there's places that are owned by elves. You go to Morrowind, and it's all dark elves.
But are they appreciated in Morrowind?
Well, I mean, it's like their homeland, where they all live, where they control everything. Yes. With echoes.
Is Morrowind agreed to be like the best one, or is that still Oblivion?
I wouldn't say Morrowind is the best one. And I would have a hard time saying Oblivion is actually the best one, too.
Are you gonna go back to Daggerfall?
No. I haven't actually played Daggerfall. But generally, I think they get better as time goes on.
Wow. You're the only person who shares this opinion that I found so far. Do you feel the same way about Fallout, is the real question.
I don't think I've ever played Fallout.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Like, generally speaking, yeah, I'm not into sci-fi stuff as much as the fantasy. Which is part of the reason why we have fantasy Pokemon. On the screen right here. Yeah.
This Bulbasaur's got a machine gun. And a power scanner.
Well, I mean, is that any different than Blastoise, really? When you think about it? A cannon sticking out of a shell.
What does the scanner say about his power level? His EVs are over 9,000. Honestly, this Floral Lab is good.
Yeah, he's not too bad. He hasn't really succumbed to the middle evolution curse so much. I think it's partly just because I gave him a kind of a personality in the way he's standing here.
Looks defiant.
Yeah, he's ready to fight somebody.
He's got mad protagonist vibes.
He's the next Naruto.
I hope not. That dude's story is tragic. I don't wish that on anyone.
I think this guy might be about done.
figuring that out at?
Yeah, can't really think of anything else that needs to be done. Except maybe add some highlights on his feet or something.
Does the other one have lowlights inside of the mouth? Or shadow inside of the mouth?
I don't think so. Nah, it's just flat. Probably could though. It does look a little awkward on the other one. Might have to go back and change that. Thing is, some of the earlier designs I made are like obviously out of place with the newer ones.
Right.
I'm gonna have to go back and make some tweaks, I think.
I would definitely wait until they're all done before doing that. Otherwise, you're just gonna get stuck in the cycle.
Yeah. Oh wait. I shouldn't put the shadows on his teeth. Those should be just straight up white so they pop out. There we go. Let's try one little thing here. Honestly, trying to get the Pokemon art style down is kind of a pain. There's a lot of little specific nuances to the way they're drawn and colored.
There's something about it that's very, it's like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's definitely a very unique style.
Yeah, it's very simple, but it's clear. You can tell what's a Pokemon, or what's supposed to be a Pokemon.
I definitely feel like it's a single artist at Game Freak who has done all of the art over the years because it is very consistent, which is the part that kind of like boggles my mind. I don't want to draw Ash Ketchum again. Man. I just want to. I just want to draw Squirtle with shades.
Gonna try and give this guy a thumb on his other hand so it looks a little more accurate. Okay, that looks worse. That's kind of what I was expecting.
I mean, it looks like you would not be able to see the thumb given how his hand is positioned.
Yeah, it just looks awkward the way it is, even though it's probably right. Oh well.
I don't. I'm gonna do that thing that's incredibly rude and say that as a viewer, it does not look incorrect.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. Well, I think that might be it for this guy. Oh man, I'm gonna have to think of a name for him. That's honestly probably harder than coming up with a design.
Instead of placeholder art, you have placeholder names.
I actually do.
Oh no!
No, I have a Google Doc that has all the stats and everything.
Yeah.
And like I had one for the first guy, and then after I drew the final stage for him, I made an entry for him, but I also made an entry for the middle one as a placeholder. And like the first one is called Arbo.
Yeah.
So it's take on arboreal. He lives in trees and stuff. So the last one, he's big and buff, so I named him Arbrawl as a pun, because he fights and he lives in trees. But the middle one is the placeholder. I just put Arboner. So obviously that's not going to be his name, but that's what I thought off the top of my head to fill space. So we're going to have to come up with... I'm going to have to go to like thesaurus.com or something.
I need additional arboreal related.
Yes. Or some other words for like fighting or whatever.
Artussle.
Artussle. He could be Arbro.
True. Arbo, Arbro, Arbrawl. It makes sense.
That does make sense. You're right. Let's see. Come on, open up the save thing. My PC really needs an upgrade.
I really hope it's just the graphics card and not like a CPU issue. 'Cause that would be such a bummer.
Okay. I'm gonna go to the creatures folder. If it'll actually show up. Alright, creature picks, and we'll name him Arbro. There we go. Simple.
Mission accomplished.
Hopefully I don't change my mind.
I look forward to seeing the final decision.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be too lazy to change it unless I have an epiphany.
3 years from now, like final release, it's gonna be like, I got it.
Our bingo.
It is. Oh my god, it would be great if it was actually awful. Artichoke.
Yeah. Well, I guess this will be it for the stream.
Alright.
I'm gonna call it quits. Thanks for talking to me. Made things a little more interesting than me just sitting here commenting on my own art.
I was just happy to be vibing.
Yeah.